It's time for Recipe of the Day. Today we are celebrating because this is the 900th episode of this podcast. 900. I'm not kidding. And we are making our way towards 1,000. So I am telling you about making something that I make for myself when I'm home alone because nobody that I live with likes it. I am also celebrating by having my brother as a guest on the Recipe of the Day Weekend Edition later today. And he is bringing a wonderful surprise recipe for me that I have heard rumored is something that is very special to my family's restaurant history. So definitely come back to listen to that later today. So the thing that I am telling you about today that I like that nobody in my house likes is grits. And I do make them for dinner for myself when nobody's here, except I usually call them polenta and I add a lot of Parmesan and mozzarella cheese to them. But they really are essentially grits. And I'm going to run through the differences between cornmeal, polenta, and grits for you before I explain how to make them. Okay, first, cornmeal. Cornmeal is typically made from a variety of corn called dent corn because it has an indentation in the kernel. It is degerminated, meaning that the germ and outer hull have been removed, and this helps make it more shelf stable. It is usually ground by machine, but you can find stone ground varieties, and it comes in fine, medium, and coarse grinds. The fine and medium are usually used in baked goods, whereas the coarse are used in more rustic preparations like polenta, and you can use them to make grits. Now, grits are often made from dent corn as well, either white or yellow. In the case of southern grits, though, they're made from hominy, which is a whole kernel corn that's had the germ and hull removed by a chemical process. They're usually coarse grind and can be stone ground, and that is supposed to make them taste better, but you often find the machine ground versions. Now, what we often get, especially in like diners or even what people buy, are the quick cooking and instant grits. These are actually made from finely ground cornmeal and they've been pre-cooked and dried, and they are not my favorite at all. Now, what is polenta? Polenta is an Italian dish, not an ingredient, and it is made from coarse ground cornmeal. So when I said earlier that I make grits for myself when nobody is home, I sort of do, but I don't buy anything labeled grits. I buy coarse ground cornmeal, and then I am essentially making the dish called polenta. And I will also say that I quite often get a little lazy and do the polenta in the oven. So I will link to my oven polenta. It has very little stirring involved and it turns out so perfect every time. So definitely check out my oven polenta recipe. But today I am telling you how to make grits on the stove. So you're going to start by getting a medium-sized heavy saucepan, and to that you're adding the liquid, 4 cups of liquid. I like to do 3.5 cups of water and 1/2 cup of whole milk. That just makes them richer, or even 1/2 and 1/2 or heavy whipping cream. That is amazing. You're also adding a teaspoon of salt at this point, and I will say you do want to salt the liquid before you start because that makes the whole dish have lots of flavor. You don't want to skip this and salt them at the end. That would be a big mistake. Okay, bring that to a boil over medium-high heat and just stir it regularly because you don't want that milk to burn at the bottom of the pot. So we've got the water, the whole milk, and the salt coming up to a boil in the pot. Put the lid on the pot when it's coming up to a boil in between stirring so that it comes to a boil faster. Then you're going to be stirring in the grits. We are going in with 1 cup of stone ground grits, white or yellow, or you can use the coarse cornmeal. That will work as well. When you're adding them, you want to be stirring continuously and adding them in like the finest stream you can handle. And that is just because they tend to clump up and then they don't cook as smoothly and evenly. So really kind of like almost dusting the liquid with the grits as you're stirring to get them in this very light, soft, fluffy, sprinkling kind of way. Then you are going to stir continuously while you bring those grits back up to a boil. It's not going to take long because the liquid was already hot, remember? So bring that up to a boil. boil over medium-high heat while stirring, then reduce heat to low, stir for a little bit longer just as everything calms down, and then put the lid on and cook for 20 to 25 minutes on low. I like to open it up partway through and stir the bottom just to make sure nothing's sticking down there, but you should be fine if you don't do that. Then you are stirring in 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. I say unsalted because we added a whole teaspoon of salt earlier, and I don't want you to end up with too salty grits. If you have salted butter, I would say use half a teaspoon of salt at the beginning and then taste at the end and see if you need any more. So you're stirring in the 2 tablespoons of butter, kind of fluffing it with a fork to stir it in, and then serve it immediately. And I will just back up here and say that if you are doing my more polenta version, then you would also stir in some Parmesan or mozzarella cheese or both, about a 1/4 cup of each. Just keep adding it till it tastes great. And I have one final tip for you. This is true of both grits and polenta. If you don't serve them right away and they start to kind of set up and get too firm, there is a very easy solution. Just add a little bit of hot water, even hot tap water. Add like 2 tablespoons, stir it in, and then 2 more tablespoons if you need it. It loosens it all back up and kind of just like becomes part of it immediately. Brilliant. I will put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you can head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there, or find it in our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/recipeotd. And hey, just a quick note. I'm on a recording hiatus right now, so for the next little while, I'm replaying episodes from the archives, including this one. If you heard me mention a holiday, a season, or something going on in my life that seemed a bit off, that's why. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you're enjoying these older episodes. I am Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, cookfor2.us, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.